morning sun. Egypt's wisdom meets everyone. Edu-Next-AI calls the world to see a future we're building for you and me. Egypt co-codes the future hand in hand. AI at the Nile's edge we stand. From our roots to the stars we soar high. Edu-Next-AI we rise, we try. Learning together bright and free. The Nile carries our destiny. The Nile carries our destiny.
And to begin this journey, it is my honor to start with a true global voice in education and entrepreneurship, Dr. Ahmed Nofel. We are thrilled to have you with us. The floor is yours to share your perspective on our theme, AI without borders, learning from the world to teach the future. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Noha. So it's a pleasure to be here with you. So very nice initiative, very excited to be here. So yeah, it's one of those moments that you feel, okay, something is really progressing. So I really appreciate all the efforts and all the stuff that you've been working on and organizing such a great event here. So thank you as well for the nice introduction and the kind words you've mentioned. So basically I've got the agenda, and then when I looked at it at the beginning, I felt like, oh, okay, this is an important topic that we need to be talking about, not only because we need to develop AI tools and stuff like this, but we've done now, it's like 2 years now since the AI evolution basically started. And since then, people are still confused. How should we go forward? So, and the confusion is not really coming from the idea that we've got like a new tool or a new thing that we could be using, but also how can we develop this? How this would change the models that we've been following, at least for the past decades, 2-3 decades. And that's an important question, because when it comes to this kind of point in specific, we're not talking about only the development of these stuff, but what is more important, how do we use these stuff that have developed a lot? One of the big issues and the big debates that we had over the 2 years, and we're still trying to develop this at EM Young Business School, is basically the idea is there are things that we used to do in the past, like for instance, the thesis development for the master's students, for the PhD student. Is it really something that we should still keep? If AI does this, what is the purpose of basically asking a student to start working on a master thesis, for instance, or to develop something that the AI could develop on their behalf? And if basically we find like, okay, it's an important thing to continue doing it, but then the next question, how are we ensuring that actually it's the person who's doing this type of stuff with almost it's impossible until now to see whether it's AI developed or not. Of course, there are various initiatives, there are various softwares, there are various platforms that could tell you the likelihood that this kind of work is being produced by AI or a human, but still it's a very young field. It's a very new thing that people are not used to it until now. So this is one of the big questions that we had it, and we had many committees in order to discuss this and how to proceed forward when it comes to handling such issues. The other thing is that people have been most of the time thinking about the negative consequences. The idea that, okay, AI has progressed very quickly, but at the same time, we're not sure that actually our students are learning and stuff like this. But it's not always that side that we're looking at here. There are some other sides that actually have been very beneficial. One of the things, for instance, is when it comes to the mental well-being, the mental health, the students with disabilities and stuff like this. we had, for instance, for the past decades, problems with dyslexic students, for instance, or ADHD students, for example, who have been struggling with some sort of have been facing some sort of problems when it comes to the idea of the exams we do, the projects that they work on, and those stuff. So when we think about those stuff, actually AI has been very beneficial because it allows you basically to just offset the negative impacts of such kind of mental health issues or stuff like this, and it would help you basically tailor your methods and tailor your assessment stuff in order to make sure that you're actually offsetting these negative consequences that people usually develop because of certain conditions that are beyond their control. It's something that they have no control on. So when I think about all those questions that I basically just talked about here, the next question is basically how do different countries that the thing that you mentioned basically in the agenda you sent me, the how do different countries basically deal with such things. So I would say that in France in general, there is no one size fits all. Different institutions, different business schools adopt different models. So one of the things, for instance, that basically I would think about is basically the idea of developing like certain guidelines and certain stuff on how to use AI, which is, from my point of view, is way more important than just the development of new AI tools and putting it into the teaching of the modules or into the training of the students or stuff like this. It's very important that a student understands how to use it because there's no way that we can block the usage. So if we are thinking, for instance, about AI and we should make sure that everyone is not using it in order to make sure that it's the production of a student, that is, from my point of view, the most unproductive kind of attitude because what happens afterwards is that they would just develop with deficiency in something, deficiency in the usage of the AI tools, which is something that we definitely don't want to do. So this would require a whole change in how we do our assessment methods. For instance, if we were doing, for example, like online exams with multiple choices and stuff like this is no longer that valid in the typical way that we used to do 3 or 4 years ago. This would require a change. And the change in here would need to involve an intellectual ability. And at the same time, they need to use AI. But AI cannot do the intellectual part. When we are talking, for instance, about something like ChatGPT, for example, up to 3 months ago, the algorithm stopped at 2021. So we are talking still about something that would develop, yes, new knowledge and new stuff, but the input that they had was basically stopping at 2021. Of course, there could be predictions and forecasting, but it would never, for instance, if we're thinking about a research design, for instance, and we would like to see how there is a specific policy or a specific strategy that would have a causal effect or a causal impact on another outcome, yes, it would run the analysis, but it would never put you the design that would allow you to estimate causality or estimate forecasting. So there could be different alternatives of using AI here, but it's very important to emphasize that it wouldn't replace the intellectual part a human being would be doing in here. The other thing that I wanted to highlight as well here is basically the idea when we're talking about something like the usage of AI in the classroom itself. There has been many kind of tools basically that would help us rather than hinder our performance. Like, for instance, in my entrepreneurship courses, I use some platforms like GoZigZag, for instance, which is something that is more related to the development of business plans by AI tools. But what I care about is not actually the development of business plans, which is something I would have cared about 3 or 4 years ago. But now, if we're thinking about business plans, anyone could do a business plan. But the idea here, if an AI is developing this for me, a difference between a student and another is basically having the ability to the problems that exist in a business plan, but not another. Having the ability to pitch an idea, for instance, to venture capitalists or to angel investors or to the government porters or something of this sort in a way that would make a difference. This is what I care about. I would care more about the flows rather than just the basic developmental stuff. So the type of training that we are actually doing now would change. It would be completely different from what we used to do in the past. So yeah, that's basically my 2 cents that I wanted to say in here, and I'm happy to share more if you've got any questions or any remarks on what I have said.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed, for sharing your thoughtful, provoking insights. You are giving us a lot of to reflect on about how AI can embody culture, navigate ethics, and still protect creativity. And I open the floor to my audience if any one of them have any questions. As all my thoughts you and all my agenda I shared with you, you already discussed these questions with us here. So any of you have any questions for Dr. Ahmed? Participants, I think so. I think so. If they didn't have any questions, I have to ask my own questions. I give them the opportunity, but I will take for myself. So what ethical dilemma has been most real, not just theoretical, in French classrooms? As I didn't went to France before, so I'm very eager to hear about what is happening in their classrooms.
So one big issue, for instance, is basically we've got different international students. So basically, if I think about the classroom in specific, you would find like probably French students represent sometimes less than 20 or 10% of the classroom. So people come from different backgrounds, and when it happens like this, you would find like people are using AI in different ways. So it's basically culturally driven, it's basically training driven, and so on. So one of the things you would find, for instance, some nationalities, they are writing everything using AI, and they're very good in running mathematical models. So they would do that part by themselves, but then they would ask ChatGPT, for instance, or Gemini, or any of the AI platforms, basically to do the rest for them. Some other students would be the opposite. And for me, I don't mind, or I don't push towards a specific usage of AI. Actually, I encourage the student to use AI. But what I would observe is basically you have to be aware about how different people use the AI. And it depends as well on the goal of the module. So for instance, if I'm working on a module that is on econometrics, for example, which is a course that I teach, I wouldn't care actually if they use to write the theory part using AI or stuff like this, as long as they are actually able to get and engage with the data, discover patterns, explain how the design works, run the analysis by themselves. So I would ask for some outputs from the software itself. I would ask for some of the syntax in order to be able to rerun the stuff that they did and so on. So in this case, I would be less concerned about the theory part. But in some other instances, for instance, if I'm teaching, for instance, theory to practice, which is a course I teach for the DBA program in the school, no, I would be very concerned. I would have to make sure that actually it's the students who wrote that type of research gap or theory. And luckily, until now, we're not having this big problem, because if you ask ChatGPT, for instance, or Copilot or stuff like this, there are some questions that if you would still ask it, they would give you like some kind of made up answers rather than really official answers or answers that would actually reflect the reality or the state of the art and the literature itself. So I try most of the time to play a lot with the data, but in terms of like the French context in there, of course, we've got all our guidelines. So you have to put things, for instance, on platforms like Turnitin or stuff, which would tell you the likelihood of the usage of AI. But it's more about the likelihood. There is nothing that's 100% certain that would tell you, okay, no, this is AI developed or not. And the other thing here is after time you get used. So for instance, now I observe if there are certain vocabulary that is present, for instance, like navigating, like bridging, like stuff like this, most of the time you have some doubts whether it's actually AI developed or not, because AI, it tends to use certain vocabulary, certain way of writing more frequently compared to others.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. I wish we have more time for you, as I have a lot of questions for you. Your speech is very inspiring and have a lot of questions, but unfortunately, we don't have that time. But I think we have to re-invite you again in our hackathon if you have time. Okay, I know you are very busy and you will tell me after the conference, but for now, we can ask you for another session to dive deeply in your thoughts and ideas about AI, because it is very interesting and very inspiring as well. And thank you very much for being with us today. It's such a great honor and privilege to having you. And thank you. Thank you.
Shine in the morning sun. Egypt's wisdom meets everyone. Edu-Next-AI calls the world to see a future we're building for you and me. Egypt co-codes the future hand in hand. AI at the Nile's edge we stand. From our roots to the stars we soar high. Edu-Next-AI we rise, we try. Learning together bright and free. The Nile carries our destiny. The Nile carries our